In this video, I'll be going over exactly how you can get more done and waste less time. I'm Lisa, and I work with busy business owners all the time to help them figure out how they can reduce their work week by at least 10 hours without working harder, trying harder, being more disciplined. It's all about being more effective and more efficient with their time. So many times when we're trying to be more effective and more efficient and getting more done without doing more, we jump right into problem solving mode. Because let's admit it, we own our own businesses. We are fixers at heart. That's what we do. And what happens is we fix the top level, the symptoms, and we don't actually get all the way down to the core of the problem, which is why we've developed the AWE framework, AWE. A stands for awareness. It's about really digging in and finding what is the actual bottleneck that's occurring in your productivity. W is work. Once we know the root of the challenge, let's then go ahead and create a structure and a solution that's easy to implement. It matches your strengths. It works with you, not something you should do or something someone tells you to do, but something that is actually super easy for you to get in and to do. If your solution requires more discipline, it's not sustainable. We want to find something that's easy to implement. And then finally, E is evaluation. The deal is when you are able to do more of what works and less of what doesn't, life becomes so much easier. The challenge is that we are working so quickly every day and we are so busy all the time that we don't take the 10 minutes to look back and say, hey, is my solution actually working? Did I solve the problem? As I solved one problem, did I unintentionally break something else? We just need to take that time back. The evaluation time. When you have all three of these pieces put together, then every day is easier. You are working less, absolutely working less. You can sit back and you can say, I have all the time and space to get done everything that I want to get done because you're attacking only the things that need attacked, not everything that pops its head up. Typically, the challenge that clients will come to me and say that they have is, I have too much to do. That is absolutely true. And the question is, why? What's happening that you have too much to do? And that's when you start to dig in. And let me tell you what that means. So for example, what'll happen is white space. So many things can be fixed if there's enough time blocked in the day to actually think about what's going on and working on big projects and planning and doing things. The question though becomes, how do you create that white space? Like, what is it that's happening that's keeping you from getting the white space that you need? It could be a variety of things. It could be procrastinating. Like maybe you are someone who procrastinates. Well, why? Why are you procrastinating? Usually it's one of two things, lack of clarity or lack of brain space. Let me give you an example of my clients that'll showcase both of those. So one of my clients owns a yoga studio. And when she is procrastinating, almost 100% of the time, it's because there's a lack of brain space for her. She has a million ideas going through her head all the time. She's thinking about family. She's thinking about what's going on in the studio. She's thinking about her instructors. She's thinking about their next marketing idea, the next event, like all of this stuff is happening. And so when she sits down to actually get some work done, that is thinking work, not doing work, not teaching a class, but actually thinking and laying things out, there's no space in her brain to do that. So then once you can identify that, then you can figure out the solution around that. And so in her case, it just means she gets to do extra yoga and it helps relax her. It helps quiet down her brain. Now imagine if you're thinking the problem is, I don't have enough white space in my day. And really what's happening is that you're procrastinating. So it's taking you longer to do everything. You could go ahead and schedule in open blocks of time. You aren't going to hold them because you don't have the time to hold them because you have all this other stuff to do. So taking our procrastination example, let's look at it from the other direction. Instead of lack of brain space, let's look at lack of clarity. So one of my clients, he is in the mergers and acquisition space. He has found is every time that he is stalled on a task. And it could be as small as emailing someone back to as large as creating a sales deck to anything in between. It is always because he is missing a piece of information, always. So there's that lack of clarity. And it could be like a really tiny piece of information, like the actual name of someone or something like that, to something really big, like what's the end goal? What are we trying to accomplish here? Or there's that feeling of disconnect where his belief is one thing, but the client on the other end, he believes something else, and he's not sure how to bridge the gap. It's a lack of clarity. Once he can dig in and find out, okay, what's my missing piece, then it's super easy for him to solve it. And then he can move forward from there. So that's how we can look at, white space is something we need to be able to think and plan and do. Yet with all the things wanting our attention all the time, it can be tough to get there. And maybe procrastination is what's keeping us from there, in which case just identify what is keeping you from action. Why are you procrastinating? So many times you can feel like I have too much to do. And that is absolutely probably true. You do have a lot on your plate. And the way to figure out how to move through that is to actually take some time to think. And so we'll call this white space. Like that's that open block in your calendar where there's nothing in it. And that's the space between the action. That's the place where you can actually plan. You can look at your calendar. You can work on the business instead of in the business. So you're in the CEO space instead of the employee space. White space, it's so easy to block it right into our calendar and say, okay, here's on Friday morning, I'm going to do whatever, big picture stuff. And yet, because you've got so much stuff going on all the time, you get to Friday and you're like, I don't have time for this. I'm going to slide that right out and I'll do it next week instead. And then you'll say it again and you'll say it again. So the way to get white space into your calendar, that place to think, that place to really plan, is to reduce the things that you're doing and to figure out the way to get the white space into your calendar, the place to think and the place to really plan, is to figure out where are you being ineffective? Where are you being inefficient? And one of those ways could be procrastinating. Blah, 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 procrastination. Another reason that it can be really hard to hold white space open is because you can get into constant firefighting mode. Come on, you own your own business. Of course, things are coming at you from all ends, and they can feel as if they are important, have to be handled right this second. With 2020 vision, which we're all perfect when we have that, and being able to look back, we can recognize, oh yeah, you know what? That wasn't really a fire. It was just something that was unexpected. The key is to be able to start to figure out the difference. Fires are real fires. They happen. There's no way to predict that they were going to happen. There was no way to be proactive around it. It is a situation where you need to react. And typically, I'll think of fires as a huge financial loss to the business, safety, anything health and safety related, and then finally, a loss of reputation. Those are the three criteria. Things that fall into one of those three criteria and that you could not foresee or create structure around, those are actual fires. And we are going to drop everything to handle those three things. It's the other stuff. It's the other 80% of things that we're treating like fires that we are being inefficient. This is where we can regain that time so we can hold that white space clear. What do I mean by that? Anything that happens more than once in your business is no longer unexpected because it's happened more than once, in which case you then can create some sort of a structure around it to be proactive. For example, one of my clients is a manufacturing firm. And as we're having conversations with the leadership team, they said, well, we wanted to plan. However, we had to put out a fire. And then they laughed. Well, the reason that they laughed was they legitimately had a fire on the floor that they had to put out. That is a fire. However, then they talked about why they couldn't do it the next day. And it was because they had call-offs on the line. And so when they don't have people to run the line, they're not making products, they're not making money. And in conversation, what we realized was that they were having shortages on the line 3 to 4 times a week. That's not a fire anymore. That's an HR thing, in which case we can now start to put some structure around that. And they did an incentive plan and they did a bunch of things. And now their attendance is way better than it was before. They've counteracted what that fire is. And that's what you're looking at. You're looking at, where can I fix this so that I can get more time back and have more space? Another example is email. How many times do you get drawn into your email feeling like, oh yeah, here comes a notification. I need to respond to that right away. So I have to be in my email all day. And being in your email all day is exceptionally inefficient because you can't think. One of my clients is a lawyer. And when we first spoke, she said absolutely, positively, she had to have her email open all day. In fact, she went as far as to say, you just don't understand what it's like to be a lawyer. And she's right. I do not understand what it's like to be a lawyer. I do understand what it's like to be a business owner and feeling like people need your attention all the time. And so the strategy that we were able to implement with her was that she could look back and identify truly what are the things that are fires that come to her via email. Okay. There's not very many. If there's something major happening, there's going to be a phone call, maybe a text message, but very seldom is the actual first line of defense on a fire going to be by email. So once we were able to identify that, then she was able to close out the email. And I think she was comfortable at like an hour at a time, which is fine. There is no judgment there because before it was all open all the time. Once she could close it out for an hour and do focused, uninterrupted work, she could regain her white space because she was more effective and more efficient. The bottom line is when you are trying to create more time in your day without working more and without trying harder, you need to figure out what is the actual productivity bottleneck. Once you can identify that, then you can build the structure that's easy to follow and that fixes that to give you more time back, which allows you that white space that you want in a day. And maybe you're going to use that white space to plan. Maybe you're going to use that white space to create a new income stream. Maybe you're going to use that white space to head home early. You can use that white space for anything you want. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, then hey, give it a thumbs up and go ahead and subscribe. And for more exciting and awesome tips like this, go ahead and click on any of the videos that are about to pop up on your screen.